This is the Code to Cash podcast.
Welcome to the Code to Cash podcast. This is your host, Ajit. Today we have Jean Chav. He is the director of Deal Desk at Hitachi Vantara. He's been at this company for a long time. Really senior leader in this field of revenue operations and Deal Desk. So I'm so excited to speak with you today, Jean. Thanks so much for giving me your time.
Thanks a lot, Ajit. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So, would love to start the conversation by getting a little bit of background into your story and how you ended up doing this role, even given, you've done quite a few things in your career before.
I have indeed. I have. So where do I start? I've been with Hitachi Vantara for about 12 years, something like that. Yeah. And I've always been, or most of my career in the IT business and specifically in storage. At Hitachi Vantara, I started off as what we call the commercial solution manager. So I was really supporting the sales team in bidding large and complex deals. This was about 10 years ago. We were starting to talk about the cloud business. I then moved to sales ops or RevOps, but I think the better term for the way we do it at Hitachi really is sales ops. We don't have the full revenue spectrum. We are really a sales support function. And my perimeter grew. I started in France, then got South Europe, which was France, Iberia, Italy, and Belgium, Luxembourg. And about 3 years ago, I was very much in my comfort zone, and my boss, who's leading RevOps at Hitachi, asked me whether I would take on the role of leader for the deal desk. And I can't say it was my plan, but I really saw that as an opportunity for different reasons, I guess. The first one is that it's an opportunity to manage a very large and diverse team. So I've got people in Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur, in Krakow, in Poland, in Western Europe, and then in the US, in Chicago and Dallas, and then in Mexico. So very diverse in terms of age as well. I think the youngest is probably 20 and the oldest is probably 65 or so. So it's a great team to manage, great experience as a leader. I think what I saw as well is that we had a deal desk, which was very much of a back office deal desk, perceived by the sales as a back office black box. And I've always believed that a deal desk has to strike the right balance between supporting the business, being very close to the business, as well as being a guardian of processes and protecting the company's best interest.
Right.
And coming from closer to the business, I felt it was interesting to try to find the right balance with the team. And after 3 years, I think we're about there.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks so much for the context. So, Hitachi Vantara seems like it's a pretty big organization, and your team, as you were just mentioning, is distributed across so many companies. I'm curious, how many people total are in your team?
So on my team, we're a team of 60, and Hitachi is about 6,000 or 7,000. Hitachi Vantara.
Got it. So 60 people deal desk team.
Correct. Yeah.
Awesome. That is so rare to hear because most people in software, these are smaller companies. So either there is one person, or if it's a bigger organization, even maybe the 1,000-person company, I've had a few interviews, there are a couple, but this is so exciting to hear a team of 60. I mean, you must get all the different, a lot of experience doing this team, right? Like all sorts of geographies, all sorts of use cases. So really excited to learn more from you.
It's amazing. And it's amazing to have, I mean, even though our offering is the same across all three geographies, the dynamics of a deal between, say, India or Brazil or Turkey and the US is very, very different. You get very different dynamics, very different relationship with the customers, and it's very interesting to cover all that.
Actually, I was going to ask you a different question, but given you mentioned that, I would love to probe on that a little bit more. So let's say two countries, right, out of these, maybe hypothetically, like India and Turkey. I just want you to contrast a little bit on how different can things be and what parameters or attributes can things actually differ. I mean, I think this could be great learning for RevOps leaders and other deal desk leaders on how to think about running their operations.
That's an interesting choice of countries, actually. They're both, I was about to say tough. I don't mean that in a bad way. They're challenging countries, but for different reasons. I think if you think about Turkey, it's a country where inflation is huge. Their currency is quite unstable. So the prices are driven down, and the competition is extremely hard to hang on to the few customers who can actually invest. So where we struggle there is that the whole market is essentially price driven. You struggle to make a difference through your product features or even through relationship with your customer. It's an extremely difficult market, and we see that there's no real partnership between the customer and the supplier. A customer will not invest in a relationship with a supplier. They know they can get a better price later. So it's very cutthroat. When it comes to India, it's a very evolved market in that most of our customers, they have a very, very strong purchasing entities. So they've got very strong negotiation power. And I've never been there yet, but my impression is that there's a culture of negotiation as well. People like to negotiate. And so it creates, every deal is almost like a game where you need to understand where to start and where you'll finish. And from a deal desk perspective, it takes a very close collaboration with the sales team. You need to trust them and establish a very close collaboration to understand where you got to start and where you want to finish in a negotiation.
Right.
So it's got to be very, very close collaboration, whereas Turkey is a lot less structured as a business. It's a bit the Far West, but for very, very strong external reasons, which are exogenous to our market and our
Understood.
company.
This is so interesting. I mean, generally, it's very hard to get these perspectives, and they're very valid. And I'm curious how you, given that these situations exist. The next question I had is more about you setting policies for sales teams, and policies can be in different multiple levels, and there are probably internal criteria also. So how do you, first of all, what are the different types of policies that you would generally set? And then how do you then take this into account, like this regional differences in while you set the policies?
It's so one of the key challenges is it's always difficult to set a policy which will work for every situation, right? And I always believe that a policy, a very strong policy, may work for 80% of the situation, but then you will need a bit of local empowerment for the 20%. As a company, we always believed in our local sales team and sales leaders, and we try to empower them. The challenge we have is, and it's a constant challenge, because you want them to drive revenue, but you also want them to protect the margin. And sometimes as an account manager, those can be two conflicting targets, right? So in terms of policies, the main policy we have is what we call the deal approval policy, as to who can approve a deal at which level. And it depends on the margin we make on a deal and the revenue, it's fairly simple, right? And through that, we try to empower the local teams as much as possible, because they know better, right? Everything I've told you about India and Turkey, I can give you a pep talk about most of the countries. That doesn't mean I know the details of how it works, right? And if everything has to come through me as well, even though I work long hours, I can't be reactive enough to something which happens like from now, it's 5 p.m. on a Friday as we speak, meaning it's probably late morning in the US. If they have an urgent deal in 4 hours, I probably won't be online, or I might even have had a couple of beers. So they can't rely on me. They can't be waiting on me until Monday morning. So you need the local empowerment, and you need as well, as the deals grow bigger, you need to make sure that things will be escalated to the right level. It's always, like everything in deal desk, it's a matter of balance, right?
And so the policies you mentioned are primarily around like who gets to approve, like a discount or a margin.
That would be the main ones.
Okay. Does any specific issues around regulatory or compliance necessitate you to have more specific policies?
So that's an interesting one, because when you look at what we call deal desk today at Hitachi, we used to call deal operation center for a long time. And it is true that if you look at my team, we're focused on configuring and pricing our proposal. If we were a real deal desk, we would probably have more legal. Right now, our legal department is separated, so the compliance is managed otherwise. We can touch on it, we can advise, we can redirect, but we don't handle the compliance policies directly.
Understood. Makes sense. Okay, so now a lot of people who will listen to this, our interaction, are going to be either most likely going to be revenue operations leaders who are thinking about creating a deal desk function. And many times when they just join an organization, they're not sure how to set it up and what type of personality to hire. So I'm curious. I have two questions. One is, what stage in a company's life journey does a startup now need a deal desk? What are the things that you may start observing at which point you say, okay, now we need a deal desk or a deal desk team? So maybe we start there. And the second question would be, what type of person is or the skill set for the person? What is the right skill set that one should be looking to hire?
Those are interesting questions. I'd say, as to the when, one of the things I truly believe is that when you build your company, or when your company grows, some may consider that the deal desk is a luxury or something we can put in place later on. The challenge is that if you leave it too late, first of all, it might be more difficult and require more effort to start, because you will have created habits and ways of working which may not be optimal and which will require alignment. The other thing is the deal desk can be a factor of increase deal velocity. If you've got this deal desk early on, you can really set up processes and set up ways of working which will increase the deal velocity and increase it safely, because you are sure that the deal desk will respect the rules and the compliance. So I would say as early as possible. Of course, it's probably not year one if you're a startup, but as soon as you start to have, I would say a dozen account managers, you'll probably need a deal desk by then, before then.
Makes sense.
And as you said earlier, the deal desk can be one person to start with.
Yep. What would be sort of like the ideal sort of then personality for you to hire?
So there again, there's probably a preconceived idea that a deal desk person has to be very detailed oriented, back office sort of person. I've seen some people working from a job as an accountant to a deal desk, and they're doing a very good job. Don't get me wrong. But I think to be a good deal desk person, especially if you're one of the starters, you need to have a business acumen. You need to understand the business, and you need to be able to have a conversation with an account manager where you can challenge him, and you can challenge him on his business and the way he's trying to close deals. I think business acumen would be the first thing to have.
Got it. And there is a very popular article in the product management community called "Good Product Manager, Bad Product Manager." It's written by like one of the people who now is a VC. That when I was sort of junior in my career, I used to read that to understand what makes me a good PM. So I wanted to ask you the same question, like what makes a good deal desk leader and a bad deal desk leader?
That's a tough one. That's a tough one because I will always be biased, right? There's always a tendency to say the good deal desk leader is me. But I would say a good deal desk leader, so if you look at people who actually manage a team, it's probably the same as a good leader. You need to be able to get your team to follow you, right? So ability to listen to them, to drive them, and to coach and manage diversity as well. As a deal desk, again, it's about balance, right? You need the attention to detail. You need to be able to go very deep in the processes, but you also need to be able to, occasionally talk to a customer, and that will happen. So you want someone who's very balanced that way. And as I say that, I have to confess, I'm probably not the ideal deal desk leader because I lack the attention to detail. Now, the bad deal desk leader would probably be someone who only has a detail oriented, who does only that, or as the opposite, who's whole ready to support and do everything that the sales does because they want to close business. Balance again is extremely important as a deal desk.
Makes sense. So this question, I'm just curious, like in your so far experience in sales operations as well as deal desk, is there, like, this is just for fun, like is there any one deal, and you can anonymize it, that you remember, like, wow, this was such a weird thing, such a weird complex deal, but we still closed it? I'm just curious to hear some war stories from you.
There's a few, but there's one I think which is worth calling out. It's and it's not finished, by the way. We're still in negotiation. It's a deal with a very large automotive company, and I think the key learning from that is that these companies, the account manager will come to you and say, "This is, what, the potential is huge. This is an amazing company. They have operations all around the world. Think about one of the largest automotive companies, right?" The challenge you'll have with them is that they have a purchasing power that you cannot match. And that these companies, however big they are, however appealing they look, the negotiation will always put you as a disadvantage. Because they are equipped to purchase, right? They are very strong at that. And with this company, we've been going back and forth for about 18 months, and they keep reeling us in because they want a dual sourcing. They want two suppliers. And they kind of like our solutions. But price-wise, they're playing with our competitors, so we know, what, we'll probably hardly ever sell to them. But they have a way to come back to you to tell you, the potential is enormous. We're talking tens of millions. And I think there's always a point as a deal desk leader where you should be able to talk to your sales leader and tell him, I know it looks great, but it's not for us. Maybe it's not for us, maybe we can't do that. And we have to be the voice of reason sometimes. And it's not the most pleasant part of the job, but that's something we have to do.
Yeah, makes sense. So basically, they're coming back again and again, but nothing is closing.
Nothing is closing. Yeah, I'm not sure we'll ever close anything.
Yeah.
But every now and again, they call us, and the account manager is like, "Oh yeah, we're back."
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
It's interesting. So is there any, in your experience, having seen so many deals, are there signals you can pick up that you say that, okay, these are the right signals that they are serious about closing this, if the other party is also? And are there examples where, your gut starts to kick in and you're like, I'm not sure whether this will happen. They're saying the right things, but I'm not sure that this, some deal will close.
It's so there's a lot of intuition in there, and I think it will really vary from one business to the other. We're not in a volume business, so for us, the relationship with the customer is key. Very often, so when I talk to the sales leaders or when I read a business case, I will pick up on things such as, okay, I know our competitors as well. So, when you see a business case and you sense it is driven by price, the decision will be driven by price mainly. And you see some of our competitors which are known on the market to be very cheap, but of lesser quality. And you see the business cases and you look at the sales and man, this is not going to work. There's also the criteria, especially if it's a public tender, if you have set criteria, it's important to know what are your strengths and where you can compete. I think beyond that, and that's probably true for any line of business, it's always a human game, right? Selling. So it's always one account manager selling to someone, to a customer. If they don't have a relationship, if they can't create anything, if your account manager tells you that he wasn't able to get the customer on the phone, those are bad signs. Always. It's
Awesome. Okay, towards the end of the interview now, I'm curious what you think about systems. You have a big deal desk team, even much smaller deal desk team will have some sort of quote to cash system. So I'm curious, like, do you get involved in that selection process? And even as if you're just using them, like how are you interfacing with these solutions on a day-to-day basis?
So yeah, I'm heavily involved in our CPQ system selection process, and that's something we use every day. So we only do the opportunity to quote part, but that's something we use on a daily basis. It's a very important tool because it facilitates the work we do to create quotes. And we also mentioned earlier processes and policies.
Yeah.
These systems will allow you to scale effectively and to implement policies which are scalable and which can adapt to the different countries as well. We talked about localization of some processes. The tools we have now advanced enough so that you can have different threshold for approval in the different countries, or you can really adapt. And that truly helps our life.
Makes sense. What is, in your opinion, is the role of AI, if any, in these systems or any of your existing processes?
So that's something a few of my team are looking at right now. I think a year ago we were all very excited or all very afraid for some of us. But I'm trying to get my team to work on it and anticipate when we are configuring our products for our customers. That's something we do along with our solution consultant. I do believe that some of the most simple configuration could be automated via AI. We are looking as well into how we could automate the competitive intelligence. There's a lot of data out there on the deals we win and the deals we lose. How could we use that to provide better pricing intelligence to our sales team? So we are looking into it. I've got out of my team, I've got 3 or 4 people who are really, really passionate about AI and we want to look into that. So that's a side project we have.
Makes sense. Awesome. Those are all my questions. John. Was there anything else maybe I did not ask that you wanted to definitely mention?
No, I think we covered everything I had in mind. I took a few notes before joining you, but no, as I said a few times, people will come with different expectations about the deal desk. Like your sales team will want velocity, and they want ease of use. The finance team or compliance team will want just safety. They want you to make sure that you respect the process. And if you think about your execs, they will want to not hear about the deal desk. Because they get the feelings that if they don't hear about us, it runs. If any exec listen to us, I would say invest in the deal desk, because the more you invest in the deal desk up front, the more you take an interest in how it runs, then the less issue you'll have in the future.
Makes sense completely. All right. With that, thank you so much, Ron. Really appreciate you having you on and learning a lot of great things. Thank you so much.
And you're welcome. It was a pleasure. Thanks a lot.